Welcome back, everyone. Today we've got an amazing story to share, one filled with dragons, dungeons, and delicious cooking. Meet Jin, an adventurer so strong he can slice a three-headed dragon in a single slash.
Ah, yes, every hero's dream, so powerful, so unstoppable, and yet afraid of becoming a monster. My, how deliciously ironic.
But his strength didn't just scare his enemies, it even scared away the people he loved. His girlfriend left him because of his overwhelming power. Isn't that just heartbreaking? So what does Jin do?
He used his one brain cell, and instead of becoming like every single betrayed protagonist, he retires. That's right, he leaves adventuring behind and goes back to his cozy little cafe in the town of Dagar.
But fate has other plans. Behind his family home lies a mysterious dungeon said to grant anyone's deepest desires. And when a runaway saint named Shuna barges into his life, Jin decides to dive back into adventure.
Dangerous monsters, deadly battles, and this is my favorite part, turning their foes into gourmet cuisine. Truly nothing says hero's journey like eating what you slay.
So grab a seat, because this manga recap is going to be full of action, heart, and a little spice. Let's get started. The story begins with Jin standing tall against a towering three-headed dragon. With one decisive swing, his blade cleaved through the beast, and the massive monster collapsed. In the adventurer's eyes, Jin stood there with his sword drawn, radiating a terrifying pressure. They couldn't help but feel amazed and fearful all at once. His very presence made the battlefield tremble. Jin expressed his concern for the male adventurer. Shaken, he quickly retracted his arm and reassured him that he was okay, as a third teammate gradually rose from the ground, still dazed from the fall. The two adventurers quickly hobbled away, stumbling over themselves as they fled. Jin, standing there in the middle of the chaos, could only watch. Despite his overwhelming strength, in this moment he felt completely helpless. As the two adventurers slowed, thinking they were far enough away, Jin's sharp ears caught their hushed voices. A monster in human skin. No wonder people avoid him. Jin's tense and shocked expression as he processed the unexpected situation, sweat glistening on his forehead while he anxiously clutched his collar. Dylan enthusiastically congratulated Jin from behind, cheering him on with excitement as Jin reacted to the sudden praise. Turning to Dylan, he grinned widely and said it wasn't easy. King Ghidorah was strong. Astonished by the incredible victory over the massive armored foes, Jin questioned their necessity in the battle, while Dylan, casually analytical, confirmed the identity of the defeated dragon and expressed his impression of the feat. But Dylan noticed Jin's hesitation. He overhears the adventurer's conversation. Dylan, ever the optimist, clapped him on the shoulder with a grin. "Come on, Jin, let's hurry home. Don't worry about those guys. Your girlfriend's waiting for you. Don't keep her waiting." But instead of warm arms and a smile, he found only silence. On the table sat a folded letter. "I'm sorry, Jin. I've found someone else. He's normal, and that's what I want." She admitted to Jin that she had always felt scared of him, her voice trembling with shame as she offered her heartfelt apology.
Ah, yes, nothing says romance like "I love you, but your sheer existence terrifies me." Truly a classic breakup memo. Signed, Heartache Inc.
In a moment of reflection, Jin felt a deep sense of trouble as he realized that even without raising her voice, the fear he instilled in others, including her, was palpable. Jin looked down at his clenched hand. He reflected on how his overwhelming power had led him to feel alienated from the realm of ordinary people. Jin reflected on the feat of defeating a beast that had eluded so many adventurers. To him, it all makes sense, the way everyone looks at him, like he's some kind of monster. They don't see the person he is inside, just the overwhelming power that frightens them.
Ah, yes. Welcome to the harsh reality of being a hero. The very same people who praise your power also tremble in fear of it. Delightful irony, isn't it?
Jin couldn't help but notice something else. Even the King of Dragons, once thought unstoppable, felt weak before his blade. Each fight, each foe, he realized he was slowly growing stronger. Reflecting on his journey, he revealed that initially he had not sought strength, but merely aimed to survive. Jin swung his sword relentlessly over and over, cleaving through monsters without pause. Each strike was filled with pain, each kill a desperate attempt to silence the ache inside him. And before he even realized it, he had grown so strong, so capable, that he was invited to join an S-Rank adventurer team, a group of the strongest in the land. Before he knew it, people were calling him Jin the Shadowless. His name spread through the land, whispered with awe and fear, a legend forged from blood and perseverance. Jin, thinking back, all his teammates except Dylan had already begun to avoid him. Dylan energetically encouraged Jin, who stood in the foreground visibly distressed, reminding him that as the ace attacker of an S-rank team, it was his calling to continue adventuring despite his self-doubt. Standing with his head bowed and shoulders slouched, Jin confessed his overwhelming exhaustion, revealing that he had reached his mental limit. Jin questioned whether continuing on his path would only deepen the belief that he was becoming more of a monster in the eyes of those around him.
Honestly, I don't exactly blame him for thinking that way. We've all seen what happens when people fear your power. They get betrayed and tossed aside despite everything they did for them.
Dylan voiced his worry about Jin's future by questioning what they would do if they quit being an adventurer. With a resolute demeanor, Jin energetically rummaged through the shelves. He insisted that it was time for him to go home. Dylan skeptically questioned whether this was indeed Jin's home, prompting Jin to respond, "It's actually not his home." Jin resolutely declared that his home is in the city of Dagar, a quiet place where his heart could rest, far from the chaos of battle. And so Jin started his journey to the city of Dagar. He spoke to Dylan, confiding his dream. He wanted to open a cafe, the very same one his grandfather once ran. When Dylan asked Jin if he'd ever cooked before, Jin simply replied, "Nope." All he wanted was to live a quiet life, far away from the endless bloodshed of adventuring. But Dylan only smiled. He told Jin that regardless of his choice, he would stand by him, that he'd be his friend, no matter what path he chose. Dylan laughed and said, "Someday I'll come visit your cafe." And Jin, with a rare smile, promised, "When you do, I'll make sure to treat you with lots of delicious food." And just like that, Jin arrived at the cafe in Dagar, ready to start a new beginning. His own quiet chapter, far away from the roar of monsters and the weight of battle.
A new beginning? Or merely just the beginning of his once easy life turning chaotic? Delightful drama waiting to happen, I'd say.
Jin cautiously opened the door. A sense of wariness enveloped him while he peered inside the new room. Jin paused for a moment, confused. The cafe door, it was unlocked. Suddenly he was caught off guard by someone off-panel questioning his presence. Startled, Jin defensively threw up his hands while clarifying that he was the grandson of the shop owner, causing the old man to react in surprise. The old man with outstretched hands greeted Jin warmly. He expressed his excitement about welcoming him back to Herod's grocery store. The old man opened the window to let in a refreshing breeze. He apologized for the disturbance and expressed his gratitude for everything Jin had done for him. The old man, with a proud smile, praised Jin for his recent admirable remarks, prompting Jin to react bashfully while scratching his head in embarrassment. Jin revealed his retirement from adventuring to the older man, who listened in shock as he expressed his intentions to reopen the cafe and reflect on his life. The old man acknowledged that being an adventurer is a pursuit that cannot last forever, offering sage advice on the limits of life.
Why, it's almost as if he's speaking from experience. Considering what we find out later on, maybe he is. Or maybe it's a spoiler. Either way, how deliciously ironic.
Alistair, no spoilers, please. Then, the old man turned to Jin. In his hands, he held a letter, one that Jin had never seen before. Carefully, he handed it to him. The old man spoke gently. "Your grandfather wrote this letter before he passed. He told me to give it to you if you ever came back." Jin put on an apron and began to renovate the cafe. Letter in hand, as he read, his grandfather's word, "I hope you're living happily, my dear Jin, but if you are reading this letter, it means you've returned. I offer you the cafe, not just as a business, but as a home. Make it your own, and may it bring you peace. For that purpose, I entrust this cafe to you, Jin." His grandfather then added that if he decides to run the cafe, then you must learn the secret, the family secret passed down for generations. Deep inside the Rocky Mountains at the back of the cafe, there was a reason why he had been warned at such a young age never to approach it. It wasn't just a mountain, it was a dungeon the family had kept hidden from the public for generations. It was the very reason the Iba family had held power and influence for so long. The dungeon is dangerous, but it offered great rewards in return, because it is rumored that the dungeon will give challengers whatever they desired. Overwhelmed by the troubling truth, Jin couldn't hide his frustration. He muttered to himself, "I came back home so I wouldn't have to deal with dungeons. Why does this keep finding me?
Oh, the poor lad returns seeking peace and ends up with ancient family secrets, dungeons, and possibly angry ghosts. Truly, the universe has impeccable timing. How quaint.
Lost in thought, Jin realized something about himself. Deep down, all he truly wanted was to face a stronger foe, to grow, to become stronger, to push beyond his limits. He wanted the praise of the people, rather than being feared and viewed as a monster. But Jin dismissed the thought, convincing himself that there was no way a dungeon out in the wilderness could be dangerous. After all, how perilous could it really be? Besides, he thought aloud, I had recently quit being an adventurer. I didn't want that life anymore. Yet, if it meant hunting monsters to help with the cafe, then maybe it wouldn't be so bad. Suddenly, he heard the creak of the cafe door opening. Jin's eyes widened in shock upon noticing an unexpected customer enter the scene. The woman standing confidently at the counter looked Jin straight in the eyes and without hesitation requested to stay the night.
Ma'am? This is a Wendy's.
Jin, completely caught off guard, stammered, Whoa, wait, this is a cafe, not an inn. The women dramatically gestured toward a mysterious sign placed upright in the center, radiating determination. A wooden sign hung invitingly outside. It read, in cheerful painted letters, Meals and Lodging, Café Dagar. The determined girl then slammed her finger onto the document in front of Jin. A hand pointed to the ledger. It read, Lodging 3,000 ghetto, Drinks 300 ghetto.
Well, advertising room and board, are we? No wonder she thinks it's an inn. I dare say he's running a hospitality empire by accident.
Honestly, he kind of set himself up for that one. Jin cursed under his breath. Darn, I forgot to change the sign. Trying to regain composure, he explained awkwardly, the inn part is closed now, but the woman just tilted her head and replied with calm determination, but there are still rooms, right? With a smug expression, Jin confronted the woman about her fear, saying, Are you scared? I'm the only person working while you're all alone. The woman insisted that she was not scared, her determination evident as she clutched her cloak tightly despite her anxious demeanor. She countered confidently, explaining that compared to sleeping outside in the harsh desert and dealing with monsters, staying at the inn would be far less dangerous. Jin, with a thoughtful smile, acknowledged her courage to stay at the inn. Jin tossed her a key with a sigh and a small smile. If you don't mind the dust, you can use the room on the second floor, he said, wishing her a good night. She looked at him with suspicion, her eyes narrowing ever so slightly. Internally, she sensed that something about Jin was off.
I don't exactly blame her. People might think she's overreacting, but she's right to be suspicious. He literally said he's the only person working here while she's alone. How does that not set off alarm bells?
While the woman went upstairs to her room, Jin, with his mind made up, decided it was time to gear up and explore the dungeon. Now, standing at the entrance of the dungeon, Jin felt a thrill deep in his chest. Though he had come home seeking peace, deep down he was an adventurer at heart. He simply could not miss the opportunity to explore a dungeon right on his very own property. Stepped cautiously into the bright, empty chamber, he gripped his sword tightly, his wary demeanor reflecting the uncertainty of the mysterious environment before him. Jin expressed his curiosity by comparing the entrance to that of an apartment building. Jin sighed in annoyance as he noticed a presence behind him, a subtle movement that made his instincts flare. Jin confronted the women, questioning why she had followed him, while she remained calm and composed. She stepped out of the shadows and said bluntly, I caught you sneaking out late, all geared up. I thought the inn was some kind of kidnapping ring disguised as a cafe.
Suspicion and paranoia. A lovely mix for our hero to trip over. Truly, nothing like starting a dungeon adventure with someone thinking you're a criminal mastermind.
The woman, surveying her surroundings with a cautious eye, asked, Is this really a dungeon? Jin, standing tall, responded confidently, It is. Jin's tone grew serious as he warned her, Leave immediately. Dungeons are dangerous and should never be taken lightly. But she brushed off his concerns with a confident smile, saying, I don't sense any monsters here. The women approached the large mysterious tablet with curiosity. Jin called out to her with a hint of concern. Text boxes ominously displayed the dungeon's details, introducing Jin Aiba and Shuna Paeta as the determined challengers ready to confront the trials ahead. The woman explored further and found something interesting, a display showing the challengers' status. Her eyes lit up with curiosity. Startled and anxious, Jin immediately confronted her. Wait, who are you? We see Shuna's status appear on display just 19 years old, an apprentice saint. Her magic attack, and even her defense are completely maxed out. Jin's eyes widen, completely shocked. Her stats are even higher than his, and he's an S-rank. With disbelief, he admits he's never seen anything like this, not even across the entire kingdom. But her expression tells a very different story. She's stunned, almost troubled, as though silently wondering who is he. Jin's own status comes into view. Every single category is maxed out, absolutely everything. Shuna gasps. His stats aren't just impressive, they're absurdly impossible. But then, something else catches her attention. Oh, that explains a lot. Despite all of Jin's maxed out numbers, his intelligence sits pathetically at just 25.
Well, that explains why all these protagonists make these stupid decisions that make us want to make us tear our eyes out. They've got mountains of power, but intelligence that barely scrapes above room temperature.
In a mocking confrontation, Shuna taunted him about his intelligence, which left Jin feeling indignant and ready to defend himself against her sharp tongue. Then Jin noticed her stats and couldn't help but comment, "Your cooking skill, it's -24? I've never even seen a negative stat before." Shuna's face instantly turned bright red. "Shut up," she snapped, flustered. Then she, "Not this stupid!" She pointed at him and shouted, "Stop staring at my stats, you pervert!"
Now you know my pain, my dear. Having to read the same tiring, stupid trope thousands of times. You'd be frustrated too.
Stay cool, Courtney. Stay cool. Okay, let's get back to the story. Jin, assertive and determined, demanded that Shuna leave so he could investigate the area.
The brave hero telling the strong woman to step aside. Surely this will end well.
Just as expected, Shuna brushed off his concern, insisting she was fine. Confidently, she declared that she would help Jin. He reacted with surprise and frustration, feeling her reasoning was selfish. With an air of assurance, Shuna led the way into the dungeon entrance, despite Jin's protests. Jin, serious and thoughtful, assessed Shuna's strength. Her stats were on the monster level, though still unimpressive compared to his own. Jin reflected that even if he unleashed his full power, Shuna would still hold her own just fine. As Jin and Shuna stepped into the dungeon entrance, the tranquil scene of a quiet, empty field bordered by trees lingered behind them. Its calm, a deceptive peace before the danger ahead.
Nature's way of saying, enjoy the view, you won't see it again.
Jin looked around in surprise, noting that the dungeon resembled wide grass plains rather than a cave. Shuna, equally astonished, commented that it felt as though they had been transported into another dimension, one that hardly looked like a dungeon at all. Shuna confidently introduced herself. Jin, upbeat, suggested they remember each other's names since they were now a team. But suddenly, Shuna attacked Jin without warning. Their strikes collided at dramatic speed, each filled with focus and defiance.
Nothing says friendship like attempted homicide.
But to Jin's shock, Shuna detected and defeated two monsters before he even realized they were there.
Oh, splendid! All that power, and he didn't put a single point into detection. But really, what do you expect from someone with an intelligence stat of 25?
Do we have to keep referencing that?
Of course, all these protagonists are too stupid. I simply can't stop talking about it.
Shuna glared forward, declaring her bare hands were enough to handle level 3 opponents. She clenched her fist with determination. Jin, amazed, assessed that she was 3 times stronger than Dylan. With a skeptical gaze, Shuna questioned him about Dylan. Jin eagerly explained that Dylan was an S-rank adventurer from the royal capital and a trusted ally. Turning away defiantly, Shuna muttered in indignation that she would never be compared to a mere wannabe, compared to all the training in the bottom of the abyss. People like Dylan are nothing but wannabes in her eyes. Jin, thoughtful and tense, contemplated the abyss with unease. Shuna, anxious and defensive, turned away, insisting it was nothing despite her distressed expression. Jin realized her abilities made sense if she had trained in the Abyss, a top-tier dungeon beneath the Gana Temple, where only high-level priests and temple knights train. With worry, Jin stressed the need for secrecy about the dungeon. Shuna calmly assured him she could keep her mouth shut. Jin teased her playfully, suggesting that despite her composure, she seemed reserved. Shuna's anger flared. She swung at him furiously, causing Jin to recoil in surprise.
Ah, young love! Nothing bonds souls like domestic assault.
Jin loomed over her with a confident grin, gripping her hand tightly. He smugly declared she shouldn't think she could beat him.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
Take this!
Yep, typical Sunder behavior. Nothing to see here, folks.
What? That doesn't even make sense in context.
Don't worry your precious little head, my dear. He's going to be just fine. Trust me, what looks like cruelty to you is, well, perfectly ordinary to me.
Ordinary for you, maybe, but I'd like to keep the death toll at 0, please. Clenching her fist, Shuna demanded confirmation. Had she killed him? Out of the smoke, Jin emerged unharmed. Nervously raising his hand, he pleaded for mercy, insisting he wanted to stay alive. Shuna, shocked, proposed casting a resurrection spell if he died. Jin, concerned, warned her about the low success rate, especially since she was still only an apprentice saint. Enraged, Shuna unleashed another furious strike, screaming that he must never call her a saint again. Jin dodged narrowly. Amazed, he acknowledged that her strike was more dangerous than King Ghidorah's. Shuna, critical and focused, she insisted, if you don't want to get hit easily, you'd better twist your hips more and add magical feints, because I am not stopping. Jin, eager and smiling, declared that his gears were still ramping up and his power was sharpening.
And thus, dear viewers, we have the makings of a partnership. Half training montage, half homicide attempt.
Jin and Shuna continued their battle, their strikes clashing with intensity. Jin focused on dodging her relentless attacks, and amidst the struggle, he came to a sudden realization. For the first time, Jin realized he was actually having fun battling. To his surprise, Shuna seemed to feel the same way. Shuna collapsed onto the ground, exhausted, gasping that she could no longer continue. Jin, flustered and nervously looking away, stammered that her underwear was showing. Shuna shot him a sharp look, replying with a smirk, "Be grateful and admire it."
And this, dear viewers, is how you make a tsundere fall in love with you. Beat her into submission first.
Shuna, overwhelmed by defeat, acknowledged with shock that she hadn't landed a single hit. But then, Jin recoils in shock as Shuna launched a sneak attack him at the neck, leaving him startled and vulnerable.
Ah, it seems she got her revenge after all. A clever strategy. Wait until his guard is down, then strike before he realizes it.
Shuna, with a determined glint in her eye, energetically raised her fist and boasted that next time she would claim Jin's arm, while Jin, with a nervous expression, reflected on the effort he had put into dodging. Jin, amused and contemplative, acknowledged Shuna's fearlessness, smirking with his eyes closed. Shuna, sitting on the ground with a playful yet demanding demeanor, declared that she was hungry and demanded something to eat. Jin, standing unimpressed, explained that he only came for an inspection and there was no food. Right on cue, a giant beast made its entrance as its clawed foot landed heavily in the field of tall grass. Jin, alert and quick-thinking, realized with surprise that they had already reached the deepest part of the dungeon. Jin, exuding pride, acknowledged Shuna's precise accuracy. The monstrous bird, its talons extended, swoops down menacingly, initiating a fierce attack.
Look at that. Dinner practically came straight to them. How convenient.
The monster, radiating raw aggression, unleashed a threatening presence as its furious eyes glared menacingly. Jin explained the significance of the massive chicken, noting that it was a particularly impressive specimen, since the usual size of such creatures was only about 2 meters. Jin proudly explained that the monster was considered a luxury ingredient at high-end restaurants and could fetch a high price. Jin effortlessly dodged the monster's attack and drew his sword, his movements calm and precise as the battle shifted back into his control. Jin, with a swift, elegant motion, sliced clean through the chicken's head. Shuna glared intensely, her resolve unwavering as blood splattered on her cheek. Jin, exuding excitement, energetically declared that tonight's dinner would be yakitori. Shuna, clearly annoyed, unleashed a massive spell that obliterated the monster completely. Unfortunately, Jin found himself caught in the crossfire.
It seems dinner decided to serve itself and threw a guest along for the ride. How delightfully inconvenient!
Jin voiced his concern. What if I died in that attack? Shuna, unfazed and radiating confidence, simply reassured him, "Don't worry, I can just cast resurrection magic if needed." Jin shook his head, pointing toward the aftermath. "Because of your attack, all the meat blew away." Shuna blinked in disbelief. There's no way all the meat could disappear. But once the smoke cleared, Shuna's eyes widened in shock. Every last piece of meat was gone.
Nothing like a bit of magical chaos to ruin a perfectly good meal or a hero's appetite.
Jin, with a calm demeanor, explained that the explosion's shockwave would send them flying, as low-level dungeon bosses were merely weak monsters temporarily enlarged. Suddenly, Jin and Shuna were startled by a loud shaking. Something massive was clearly approaching. Jin and Shuna, feeling a mix of relief and amazement, stood before the glowing altar that signified the triumphant completion of the dungeon, alongside a giant bird and a treasure chest. Jin, wary and realistic, cautioned Shuna not to expect too much as she excitedly rushed toward the large treasure chest, reminding her it was merely the reward for a level 3 dungeon. Shuna, with a determined expression, opened the treasure chest while expressing that, despite understanding the odds, she couldn't help but feel hopeful. An ancient scroll lies illuminated on the wooden floor, introducing a sense of mystery to the scene. Shuna, with a mix of curiosity and caution, uncovered and inspected the magic scroll, while Jin, eager and optimistic, exclaimed excitedly that they had found a jackpot. Jin turned to Shuna, holding up a scroll. You can activate it by opening its contents. As she examined it, Jin noted, even a weak scroll could fetch a high price. Shuna looked puzzled. Jin raised an eyebrow. What's wrong? Is it a rare spell? Shuna sternly presented a scroll to Jin, emphasizing its importance with the word delicious, prominently displayed alongside an illustration of a drink. Shuna, with a look of sheer frustration, exhaled loudly, exasperated by the revelation that all their efforts had yielded nothing more than a cooking recipe. Shuna then questioned, what significance does a simple coffee brewing recipe make it so special? At that moment, Jin noticed the true significance of this treasure. He was about to open a cafe, but had no idea how to brew proper coffee. To him, this recipe was literally an S-rank treasure. Jin, smirking confidently, pieced together the dungeon's true nature, realizing it granted challengers exactly what they desired, such as food and recipes.
Well, it looks like the rumors were true about dungeon-granted desires, and his is just simple cooking recipes. How delightfully mundane!
Shuna confidently instructed Jin to make coffee once they returned, noting that they finally had the recipe. While Jin agreed nervously, but then Jin admitted sheepishly, I haven't even prepared the coffee beans yet. Shuna, visibly irritated, scolded him sharply for the cafe's utter lack of preparation. Shuna, curious about the menu, persistently questioned Jin, who defensively retorted that they were not yet open and insisted she wait until tomorrow for answers. Jin, trying to defend himself, explained, well, I was planning to just serve water. Water is a luxury in the desert, after all. Shuna stared at him, incredulous, before asking flatly, and how exactly is the water being brewed? Jin, now nervously, added, I could serve ice water instead? Shuna crossed her arms and raised an eyebrow. Ice water? And how about the flavor? Jin, with a resolute expression, dramatically revealed his critical idea about using sugar water and salt water as a solution.
You're a fucking idiot.
And as if the audience couldn't figure it out by now, he's a little slow on the uptake, isn't he?
Under the ominous crescent moon, and Jin stood with unease, scanning their surroundings for danger and preparing for potential threats as a strong wind swept around them. Jin, feeling relieved, acknowledged their successful discovery of the rare blood cochin eggs, which glowed with an aura of hopefulness as he presented them with a gloved hand. Reflecting on a long effort, Jin and walked wearily down the hallway, with Jin carrying a basket and remarking tiredly that it had taken until midnight. Jin calmly wished a good night, while, with a spirited determination, warned him that she would not hesitate to take action if he dared to eat the eggs before her. Jin sat up in bed, reflecting on his unexpected success as he contemplated how he had merely intended to monitor the situation, but ended up clearing the dungeon, noting that the monsters had been weak. Jin lay in bed, smiling softly with his eyes closed, as he reflected contentedly on his recent experiences, thinking to himself that despite everything, it had been kind of fun. A sudden burst of light appears in the sky above a quiet building, creating a dramatic and blinding flash that erupts across the scene. Jin leaned casually on the counter with a hopeful expression, strategizing that if they were fortunate, they might profit by selling water to travelers under the harsh UV rays pouring over the desert. Jin confidently tied his apron in front of the menu board, announcing with excitement that today marked the opening of. Jin greeted warmly as she entered the room sleepily, responding to his morning greeting with a groggy acknowledgement.
Shuna, calmly leaning on the counter, requested breakfast because she was hungry. Shuna cheerfully inquired about the breakfast menu, to which Jin calmly replied that they would be having the blood cochin eggs from yesterday. Jin curiously asked Shuna for advice on tasty ways to cook eggs, prompting Shuna to respond with exaggerated frustration. "How would I know?" Shuna shot him a look and teased, "You're supposed to be the cook, right? Figure something out." Jin awkwardly replied, "The adventurers always left the cooking to the cook, so I don't know much myself." Jin sighed and pleaded, "Come on, help me out here. Didn't you ever cook while helping at home?" Shuna, with a nervous yet aggressive tone, snapped back, "I was always busy." Her response only deepened Jin's annoyance as he sighed in frustration.
Ah, that explains to why her cooking stat is abysmal. But can you really blame her? Considering what she's been through, she had to... Oh, we'll find out later.
Jin, unfazed by the situation, remarked calmly, "With stats as impressive as yours, things like this are bound to happen." Jin, eager to help and prove himself, confidently volunteered to fry the eggs while Shuna looked at him with hopeful interest. Shuna reassured herself of her capability, expressing a newfound confidence in handling the challenges ahead. Urgently riding a camel, the old man called out to Jin, expressing concern as he sought to determine if he was awake. Jin suddenly recognized the old man, now introduced as Poblik. Ugh, these lousy translations. Of course they wait until now to reveal the old man's name. Now I've got to backtrack and make edits. Without warning, Jin tossed the eggs over to Shuna. She caught them in shock, staring down at them as if they were far more dangerous than any monster. Jin, scratching the back of his head apologetically, said to Shuna, "Could you cook the eggs while I order the food? I'm hungry too." Shuna, looking nervous and driven by a sense of responsibility, hesitantly presented egg while feeling uneasy. In a moment of uncertainty, a thought lingered about whether frying them in a pan would be a suitable solution.
What could possibly go wrong?
Jin, eager and hospitable, greeted Pobik with a raised hand, welcoming him and inquiring about his order as he anticipated him becoming a regular at the cafe. Jin, appearing thoughtful and engaged, suggested that he was considering ordering some coffee beans and bread.
What the fuck?
Well, this is what happens when you've got someone with a cooking stat of -24. Even basic things like eggs. All the results can be downright explosive.
Jin, filled with alarm and concern, urgently turned to Shuna, asking her if she is all right. Startled by the unexpected mishap, Shuna looked on in shock as her culinary attempt boiled over, the overflowing pot creating a chaotic scene before her. Staring in shock at the frying pan, Jin confronted the egregious cooking mistake, expressing his disbelief over the possibility of frying an egg with the shell still on, while Shuna nervously presented the questionable dish. Shuna, feeling embarrassed and defensive about her cooking error, was met with Jin's annoyed correction as he explained that eggs needed to be cracked before boiling. Jin held up a pot of ruined food, exasperatedly critiquing Shuna's cooking efforts, while she stood flustered and embarrassed by the situation. Kneeling by the wooden bucket, Jin processed the unexpected news with a mix of surprise and unease, acknowledging that despite the impossibility of the situation, there was nothing he could do about it now. Jin, visibly upset and gripping a bucket, demanded a proper apology while insisting that she also clean up to earn his forgiveness. Shuna floated above Jin, enveloped in glowing energy and channeling a powerful, mysterious force. Jin, alert and cautious, analyzed the chaotic holy aura surrounding him, feeling the air tremble as beads of sweat formed on his forehead in response to the overwhelming energy. Shuna channeled powerful energy to unleash resurrection magic. With fierce determination, Shuna unleashed a powerful attack, her hands slamming down with explosive force. Two baby birds emerged from their shells. They looked around in amazement, their wide eyes reflecting the sparkling light that surrounded them.
Well, that's one way to clean up spoiled food. Just revive it back to the living.
Jin's wide, shocked eyes reflected his panic as he realized that the eggs were not only alive again, but two of them had already become chicks. As Jin stood over the cauldron filled with several small chicks, he expressed his amazement at Shuna's extraordinary achievement of resurrecting 5 out of 6, noting that such a high success rate was nearly unheard of among high-level priests. Startled and questioning, Jin demanded answers about the mysterious presence, while Shuna, feeling embarrassed, awkwardly averted her gaze, uncomfortable with the situation. Shuna collapsed against the wall. Jin, visibly worried, questioned whether she had exhausted her mana. As Shuna collapsed to the ground, utterly drained from using resurrection magic multiple times, Jin pointed out her lack of gratitude while feeling exasperated at her embarrassing state. Jin, concerned for Shuna's well-being, poured water into a cup and offered it to her as she weakly requested hydration, her exhaustion evident in her weary demeanor. Caught off guard by the unexpected price, Shuna expressed her shock, visibly stunned by the demand of 200 gold.
Well, she has to pay for the spoiled food somehow, right?
Shuna, her face red with frustration, shouted, "You're actually charging money?" Jin, proudly wearing his apron, replied with a grin, "Of course I am. You're a customer. Welcome to Café Dagar."
Capitalism at its finest. Nothing says hospitality like charging your battle partner for breakfast.
Back in the dungeon, Jin explained that as the owner of Café Dagar, it was his responsibility to procure food, even inside the dungeon itself. Jin turned to Shuna with an annoyed look and asked, "So why did you come along anyway?" Shuna crossed her arms and replied casually, "Because it's boring to stay in my room." Jin noted, "Last time the dungeon was only at level 3, so this time it should be around level 1 to 5, only weak monsters will show up." Shuna sighed, stretching her arms lazily. "Great, another walk in the park. How boring." Shuna calmly stated that having fun would require a dungeon of level 100. Jin, smirking confidently, expressed his eagerness for the challenge of a level 100 dungeon, asserting that it was the ideal way to truly have fun. Jin looked over his shoulder with a serious expression as he contemplated leaving his adventuring days behind, while Shuna calmly walked ahead through the doorway, leading the way into the unknown. In the back of his mind, Jin found it strange despite being challengers of the dungeon, it continued to grant them exactly what they desired. Shuna, feeling impatient, urgently pulled Jin through a doorway in the cracked stone wall as she, startled but compliant, hesitantly followed him. When they reached the dungeon console, Shuna's eyes widened in shock. "Wait, the dungeon level just went up by 1. Jin observed the display carefully and nodded, "So that's it. The dungeon levels up every time we enter and complete it." Jin and Shuna exchanged glances, the same mischievous spark lighting up in both their eyes. They had an idea. They quickly realized that each time the dungeon leveled up, the monsters grew stronger as well. Shuna turned to Jin with a confident smirk, her eyes gleaming. She didn't need to say a word. Her expression said it all. Jin looked back at Shuna with a knowing smile, fully aware of what she was planning.
Something tells me they've stumbled upon the ultimate exploit of the century, and it just so happens to be for 2 powerfully battle-hungry adventurers.
Jin and Shuna entered the dungeon again and again, each seeking the challenge they so desperately desired. Jin and Shuna re-entered the dungeon for their 15th time. But this time, the dungeon had leveled up to a staggering 256. After entering the dungeon so many times, Jin began to recognize the patterns and realized that another wilderness dungeon lay ahead. Shuna playfully teased Jin about his fear. He excitedly shouted in response, both of them facing the unseen threat that heightened their senses. Suddenly, a menacing insect charged toward them. Jin stood alert and ready to defend while Shuna braced herself to fight the incoming threat. Wide-eyed and tense, dodged a large sword that clashed dangerously close to his face. Jin raised his sword to strike at the insect, but the creature was far stronger than he expected. It blocked his attack with ease. Caught off guard by unexpected resistance, Jin reacted in shock, astonished by the unexpected toughness. Jin and Shuna stood back to back, their senses alert, as the sound of hundreds of insects swarmed in from all sides. Jin stood resolutely with his sword drawn, ready to defend Shuna. They found themselves encircled by a swarm of giant, menacing bees.
Well, they said they wanted a challenge, and wouldn't you know it, they got one! In the form of thousands of stinging bees, each equipped with stingers sharp enough to block swords! How delightfully painful!
Shuna and Jin found themselves surrounded by a rather buzzing swarm of monstrous bees. Jin hadn't expected their numbers to be so overwhelming. Jin, ever the gallant one, decides to distract them while Shuna, with her fiery personality, uses her magic to incinerate the little nuisances. Jin danced this dangerous waltz, skillfully drawing the attention of every killer bee onto himself. Jin skillfully gathered the buzzing horde into one convenient spot, perfectly setting them up for Shuna's fireball. But Shuna releases a massive fireball that explodes with a most satisfying force, catching even dear Jin in the blast.
My, what exquisite timing! Or should we say, inconvenient for Jin.
Frustrated, Jin reacts angrily, while Shuna, with the casual indifference of a true artist, notes that she merely reduced the power so it wouldn't kill him. Suddenly, Shuna notices the queen bee launching a sneak attack, but she realizes she is too slow to block it.
Well, it seems Shuna has finally met an opponent even she can't predict. I suppose it's about time to roll the credits, isn't it?
But fear not. Jin, ever the dashing hero, steps in, grabbing the stinger and stopping the attack. But when Jin crushed the stinger, some strange liquid splashed onto Shuna's face, and well, her expression said it all. She was furious.
Of course! They simply had to include one of those, didn't they? It wouldn't be a Japanese fantasy story without them, now would it?
And to the shock of no one, Shuna was so pissed off she launched an attack that hit both the queen bee and Jin.
Note to self, never do fan service around a tsundere unless you want to end up like that. Oh, is this thing on? Don't mind me, let's continue and pretend that didn't happen.
Jin gets burned again, snapping at her in frustration, while Shuna, positively gleeful, celebrates that her attack hit him this time. Shuna uses healing magic to treat his burns, and Jin, rather touchingly, feels impressed by how soothing her magic is. After recovering, he mentions his shoulder still hurts from grabbing the stinger and asks her to heal it too. Shuna teasingly complains that he is too needy, saying she prefers being the one spoiled. Jin responds that this means they get along perfectly.
A match made in, well, somewhere equally chaotic, I'm sure.
They soon approach a large tree with honey dripping from a honeycomb. Just then, Jin and Shuna both sense something coming behind them. They turn to see the dungeon boss, a massive flaming bull charging toward them. Shuna remarks that her fire magic will be useless against a fire-type enemy, and with an almost admirable pragmatism, decides to leave this fight to Jin. Jin decides that since they already defeated the killer bees, he might as well strike first against the next enemy. Jin channels magic throughout his body and dashes forward at incredible speed, his slashes so fast they leave after images. Normally, his first strike would end most battles. But the flaming bull swiftly dodges and counters, forcing Jin to bend backward to avoid being hit.
Looks like Jin is finally facing his toughest opponent yet, and he's actually happy about it.
Shuna is shocked that the bull managed to evade his attack. Jin acknowledges that it's expected from a level 256 monster. But Jin adds that exactly that is what makes it predictable. As he sidesteps another attack, Jin realizes that the creature can read his movements. The bull reacts just as before, dodging and moving in to counter. However, Jin anticipates this. Letting his hilt slide to extend the slash farther than before, Jin managed to cut into one of the bull's eyes. The bull roars in pain. Jin quickly moves into its blind spot. He channels a huge surge of magic into his blade and finishes the beast with a powerful slash. Shuna praises the result, calling it an easy victory.
All the casual indifference to the effort!
But Jin feels drained and in pain. He notices his fingers are burned, realizing that even standing close to the bull caused the burns, and remarks that it felt like a real fight. Jin asks Shuna to heal him again, and though she complains about him being too needy, she still uses her healing magic to treat his wounds. As they rest, Jin catches a pleasant scent, and Shuna agrees that something smells delicious. They soon notice that the flaming bull's body has cooked itself into a steak from its own heat.
Well, isn't that convenient? Dinner served, self-cooked, and fresh off the battlefield.
Shuna observes that its fireproof hide remained intact, while only the exposed flesh was seared. Jin moves closer, cuts a slice from the cooked meat, and remarks that in this world, there's a dish called roasted whole pig, but this time it's like a roasted whole cow on a much larger scale. Jin takes a bite of the cooked inferno bowl and is immediately amazed by how delicious it tastes, calling it a first-class steak. He urges Shuna to try it, and though she seems doubtful at first, she's quickly surprised by how good it is. Impressed Jin suggests they take the whole thing back with them. Before they can move, a treasure chest appears. Jin wonders about the reward while Shuna checks it and finds a recipe book inside. It turns out to be a collection of toast recipes. Jin starts imagining how perfect the steak would taste, paired with garlic toast, thinking it would make an ideal steak lunch that would draw plenty of customers. Shuna agrees, saying people would definitely love it, though the price would matter. Jin boldly declares he'll set the steak lunch at 600 guto, saying it's a decision made with the resolve of leaping off Kiyomizu's stage. Shuna is left puzzled, wondering what Kiyomizu even is. Later, back at Dagar Café, Shuna asks Jin to slice her more roast fillet, saying she wants some ribs too. Jin agrees, admitting he doesn't really know the different cuts, but will just slice it, however he can. As they eat, he mutters that the meat cooks itself perfectly the moment he cuts it, feeling almost spoiled by how effortless it is.
Nothing like the satisfaction of hunting your own food and cooking it to perfection after a long day, don't you agree?
Pobik soon enters the cafe, informing Jin about the delivery of coffee and bread whatsoever. He notices the rich, savory smell filling the air. Jin tells him that they're about to start serving steak lunches, but Pobik points out that Jin is grilling too much steak, making Jin realize he forgot that the meat cooks itself automatically. He notes that while he could preserve raw meat with ice magic, freezing cooked steak would ruin its flavor. Worried, he wonders if they can sell all the steak lunches that day.
The anxieties of the entrepreneur! A true horror!
Pobik then asks if the cafe is even open yet, since the villagers don't know Jin has returned. Jin suddenly realizes he forgot to announce the reopening, but quickly comes up with an idea. Later, in Dagar village, Jin carries a large box filled with steaks and announces the grand reopening of Café Dagar, handing out free steak to everyone. He gives some to the children and even to two men, asking them to support the cafe. After he leaves, the men whisper among themselves, saying the cafe had been closed for a long time and that it feels eerie. They recall how strange incidents happened around Jin's place before, frequent injuries and even signs of battles with monsters, so they decide to stay away and warn the children too.
Oh, the fickle nature of the common folk, always fearing the unusual!
Nearby, Shuna overhears their conversation while sitting quietly, her expression unreadable. Jin soon rushes back to her, excitedly telling her that he has finished giving out all the steaks, unaware of the brewing skepticism. The next day, they wait inside the cafe, but no customers show up despite all their efforts. Jin sighs, disappointed that no one came.
Oh, the crushing weight of disappointment! A truly pathetic turnout!
Shuna casually suggests they go back to the dungeon, saying he can pick any floor he wants, and if he dies, she'll resurrect him. Jin wonders why she's suddenly being so nice. Jin jokes about the cruel saint acting kind. Offended, Shuna snaps back that he can call her cruel, but never a saint, just as she looks ready to hit him. Before the argument escalates, the door opens and a small girl shyly enters, greeting them politely.
Darn it! Just as the entertainment was about to reach its glorious peak!
Jin brightens immediately and welcomes her warmly. The girl thanks him for the steak he gave out the previous day, which makes Shuna remark on how well-mannered she is. The girl admits it's her first time in a cafe, so Jin offers to make her some coffee. But she says she can't drink it because it's too bitter. Thinking of an alternative, Jin hesitates, and Shuna teases him, asking if he plans to charge a child for water. She then steps in, pours some honey into a glass of water, and gives it to the girl, saying it's on the house. The girl takes a sip, says it's sweet and delicious. The girl thanks them both sincerely, and then leaves the cafe with a smile.
A happy customer! The first ripple in a pond of potential patronage!
Jin is surprised and impressed that Shuna managed to make honey water despite her cooking skill being at -24. She explains that when it comes to medicine, she can make things properly. She comments that Jin has finally opened the cafe he had always dreamed of. Jin admits that when he was a child, he couldn't drink coffee, though he still loved the atmosphere of cafes. At first, even the smell of coffee was too strong for him, but the first time he tried a freshly brewed one, he realized how different and delicious it was compared to canned coffee. That experience inspired him to one day open a cafe where he could share that same sense of joy with others. As he reflects on it, he tries to recall the name of the drink that left such an impression on him. But the memory slips away.